Please like and subscribe.
What should I say about BBY-3, the second story arc of Andor's second season?
This is where the fun begins. We're in trouble.
I'll pick through the rubble of my hopes and dreams while Bix and Cassian shop for dinner at a market on maybe Coruscant. Next. Welcome to Galactic Initiative. I'm your host, Jeff. If you haven't finished episode 6 of Andor S2, many things in this video won't make sense to you. Spoilers ahead. Grand Admiral Sean will have the microphone after me. Last week, I was the unhappier fan. Where does he stand this week? I'm anxious for his take, but I'll come out swinging. My daughters like the expression, don't yuck someone else's yum. If you love Andor Season 2,
Good for you, man. Good for you. Good for you.
understand, I'm not trying to yuck your yum. I'm conveying my opinions for catharsis and debate. Ever been to Gorman, the 4th episode of Andor's second season was very good. In contrast to the first 3 episodes, the pace accelerated and the subplots addressed interesting substantive challenges. To invest in the narrative, viewers required more conspiracies during Palpatine's reign. Episode 4 provided them. For the first time, we witnessed Mon Mothma's dealings with other senators, her efforts to fight Palpatine through the remnants of democracy. Luthen apparently lent Wilmon to Saw for a terrorist operation. Saw's unpredictability continued to raise the stakes. In the role, Forrest Whitaker is entertaining, and the creator should have capitalized on his screen presence long ago. Nice to see Two Tubes, Moroff, and the other partisans. Andor would benefit from stronger connections to its predecessors. In other words, Andor could lean closer to its source material without accusations of fan service. Mention of Tarkin's Gorman massacre is an example. Cyril infiltrated the Gorman front, or did he? His cloak and dagger mission for Dedra might lead to unexpected consequences. Lonnie befriended Dedra's former assistant, Hirt, for information about Gorman. Hirt received an off-screen promotion to ISB supervisor since the Ferrix kerfuffle in Season 1. As Grand Admiral Sean observed, the Bureau's internal rivalries and external schemes could fuel an entire series. ISB Coruscant has a nice ring. The worst subplot belonged to Bix and Cassian. By worst, I mean least interesting, not most objectionable. The season's best performance comes from Adria Arjona as she reveals Bix's lingering distress. It's an unusual secondary storyline for Star Wars. Speaking of unusual, one of the guards at the Imperial Bureau of Standards office on Gorman was
Robust.
When did the Empire relax its physical fit? I support cosplay, but enough is enough. The Empire mandated exercise and annual health assessments for its armed forces, correct? 2 weeks ago, I asked Grand Admiral Sean to ship one pair for the upcoming season. Bix and Cassian, Cinta and Vel, or Dedra and Cyril. Shame on me. The correct answer was all of the above. Andor supplanted Attack of the Clones as the franchise leader for romance.
I don't like sand.
Easy, Tiger. After I finished the 4th episode, I thought, yes, we need more diplomacy, more spycraft, more aliens, more Saw, more ISB, more nods to the past, and more action.
Turn out the lights.
No, not that kind of action. Then, I watched the 5th episode, and my excitement was dashed upon the cliffs of ennui. Episodes 5 and 6 were
Not good.
To Andor's diehards, I reassert, Andor is a soap opera now. What do you call a serial drama characterized by tangled interpersonal situations, melodrama, and sentimentality? The answer is a soap opera. Dictionary definition. Romantic relationships, wedding gowns, wedding toasts, dancing, French fashion designers, mommy issues, progressive social causes, loveless marriages. A Star Wars fan craves not these things. I anticipate criticism for lack of patience and unrefined taste. Also, I expect predictions of amazing things to come. Well, I'm rooting for a satisfying second half too. I want Andor to be amazing, but facts are facts. Cyril infiltrated the Gorman front. Nothing changed. Cassian visited Gorman. Nothing changed. Luthen sent Vel to Gorman. Transports were raided. Cinta perished. No conclusion. Bix abused drugs. Nothing changed. Saw manipulated Wilmon to expose an Imperial spy. Nothing changed. Kleya retrieved a concealed listening device from a compromised location. Nothing changed. Bix killed Dr. Gorst with Cassian's help. No conclusion. For Andor's creators, I have a few questions. What did you hope to accomplish with the bug in Davos' art collection? Can you, in good conscience, even call it a MacGuffin? What was the purpose of Davos' party since it didn't advance the plot? All the tense moments with Lonnie and Clea resulted in what exactly? Rebels assassinated an Imperial interrogator and detonated a bomb on Coruscant. How would the Emperor react to such a threat?
Wipe them out. All of them.
Luthen, who ordered Tay's death, allowed Cassian to defy him? Cassian blew up an Imperial building without Luthen's approval? Saw's partisans camped at the future Resistance base on Dakar? You included another nod to the sequel trilogy. Saw identified an Imperial spy, but instead of immediate termination, he permitted surveillance and communication as part of an elaborate misdirection. No risk of a prompt Imperial strike on his camp.
Lies! Deceptions!
Cinta died needlessly in an accident after she took a 180-degree turn off screen. Classic Kennedy film. The Gorman front unloaded Imperial transports full of what? Will the Empire cancel shipments of berets and cigarette holders to Gorman? My biggest complaint with Season 2 is the absence of outcomes. In Season 1, the first story arc began with Cassian's deletion of 2 rent-a-cops, and ended with Luthen's offer to join the rebellion. In between, we learned about Cassian's guilt over Kenari, Cyril's quest for justice, Dedra's lust for power, and all the characters and relationships on Ferrix to set up the finale. The second story arc began with Cassian's introduction to Vel's crew, and ended with Cassian's deletion of Skeen. In between, we viewed differing motivations for rebellion and the thrilling heist on Aldhani. The first, second, and third arcs each had a unique plot, including conflict, exposition, climax, and resolution. The fourth arc connected all the preceding arcs. Unlike the show, I'll get to the point. In Season 2, neither the first nor the second arc had a climax or resolution. What happened to the TIE Avenger? What happened to the rebels on Yavin 4? What were the takeaways from the wedding? What was the significance of Brazo's death? What was the significance of Cinta's death? What was the upshot of the transport raid? What was the goal of Saw's operation? Season 1 excelled at the requisite for visual storytelling. Show, don't tell. Season 2 has, to its detriment, reversed the axiom, and I'm frustrated with tell, don't show. Which brings me to my second biggest complaint, the lack of action. Star Wars is many things, but boring isn't one. I don't need space battles or lightsaber duels or ground assaults in every episode. I appreciate character development and drama, but come on. So far, Andor's second season has neglected Star Wars.
Just talking? Well, what's the show about? It's about nothing. No story? No, forget the story. You gotta have a story. Who says you gotta have a story?
It has only production design in common with Lucas. By day, Gorman was spectacular. The performers, directors, and makers demonstrated their expertise, but the writers and producers have dropped the ball. I've said my piece. Grand Admiral Sean, what is your take?
I detect no lies in your previous statements, and I would agree with you on your assessment of our second installment in Season 2. I would be a little more positive in general. I feel that some of the fears that we discussed in our first conversation about the first 3 episodes of Season 2 have been alleviated. Some have, and some have been exacerbated, but we were concerned that the first 3 episodes were going to be indicative of the longer product and the remaining 9 episodes. It did pick up, the pace picked up, the action is there. It feels like we are starting now to move towards some kind of climax in the story that's going to result in the rebellion and Rogue One. But there are a few things, and one of them is, I think, in our run-up to Season 2, when we were assessing Season 1, and I think I brought it up again maybe at last time we recorded, but there's a preponderance of 2025 real-time politics and socio-cultural markers in the show. And we had praised Season 1 for throwing those things in but not making them distracting, or when they occurred that they didn't stand out as almost being inserted last minute at the detriment of the story. This set of episodes definitely made no bones about certain things. And it feels like this is my concern about Kathy Kennedy being involved more heavily in guiding the air quotes creative process for season 2. There's some things that show up in these episodes or in the second season now that we're starting to see. We had talked about, for example, the daytime talk show that Bix was watching, and I believe Cyril's mom was also watching it, and how it felt very Hunger Games, how it was very reminiscent of the ladies with the pink hair and gossip and society talk and who's going to be at the ball and like all that kind of stuff. It felt very poached from the Hunger Games and dropped in. And I understand what I think I understand what the creative people behind this episode were trying to do by the use of infotainment and popular media to distract the population away from the crimes of the government and focusing on the whatever they call the installation day or whatever it was about the new Senate being sworn in. And we've seen this stuff in Rebels, it's Empire Day, on Lothal, we're going to have a parade and all that kind of stuff. And it's, using these things to distract the populace. But to use something that is so visually similar to something from another franchise that technically, in a way, you're competing against, right, for eyeballs and attention, it feels like someone was either creatively being very lazy or they were trying to do something else with intent. And I don't really know what that is, but again, it's something that takes you out of the show. And there's some other allegories and analogies that are less hidden or less well camouflaged than they were in season 1. And so I don't know, again, if this is a function of now compressing everything into shorter story arcs, less episodes, the fear that we had. And I think that some of these things are coming out of that now, that choices that are being made, some of these seemingly dead-end story points that you mentioned that don't pay off and then they just get forgotten in the next set of episodes that come out. I'm wondering if these things are actually hangovers from the fact that we went from 40-some episodes down to 12. So I'm giving some of that the benefit of the doubt, saying that maybe it's just because we got a timeline and things just had to be done a certain way that we couldn't take the care to address things in a way that were less obvious. The other thing that stands out to me about this season that, I don't know, some of these character development issues and storyline issues or whatnot, it feels like this show, which initially we praised highly for being a new type of Star Wars or a different type of Star Wars. It was Star Wars that didn't necessarily hold some of the hallmarks of the original product, right? It was a Star Wars without Jedi. There's no lightsaber battles. There's no real talk of the Force. There's not even like some passing, like, may the Force be with you or whatever. And we were happy with that because the story was well written and well crafted and we enjoyed it. We have said in previous conversations that you could take this story, you could lift it out of Star Wars, you could drop it anywhere else, and you would have a compelling drama, and which, again, is what you want from your Star Wars. You want good stories. I don't know if Tony Gilroy and others, if they had to go to their head a little bit and they've tried to make something that's even less Star Wars. One of the things about season 1 is you still have Star Wars stuff in there that is recognizable, whether it be stormtroopers or ships or the Imperial Cog or things like that. The feel, the overall aesthetic, you would know you're in the Star Wars universe, yet, again, no lightsabers, none of that stuff. I feel like this second season here now is pushing that envelope even further, that we are getting farther and farther away from even recognizable Star Wars things. So unless we are in the ISB office, there's really no connection in season 2 to Star Wars. Yes, there's futuristic and fantastic sets and costumes and all these things, but Cyril wears a necktie and a suit and we have this Hunger Games weird thing on the TV. The fact that it's a TV, what happened to the HoloNet? We had the HoloNet in Mandalorian. Holograms, they're the way that people communicate and whatever, and we're not getting any of that in season 2. And so it feels like that the show is to see how far away from Star Wars we can actually get before the people realize that it's not Star Wars anymore. It's not telling Star Wars tales in a way, the larger epic struggle, good versus evil. I mean, it feels like we're having a community mental health struggle session where we're all talking through our trauma. All the characters are going mad. Bix is now a depressed, suicidal drug addict. You've got, Luthen, who is cracking under the pressure of being a master spy, living a double, triple life, and organizing a massive rebellion against the Empire. Cassian is Cassian, but he's kind of a loose cannon, and he's acting in ways that are a little bit emotionally unhinged. Mon Mothma is also cracking, and we're starting to get this pantheon of insane in our main characters. Cyril was always crazy. He's a psychopath, sociopath, some kind of path. He's on the path. And same thing with Dedra, also crazy. But perhaps this is how we're going to resolve the fact that most of them are not in Rogue One, and we're not going to see them ever again in the Star Wars universe. So maybe they do have to go mad and make bad choices and ultimately be removed from the narrative. By doing all this, by cloning all these characters and making all these characters similar, going through the same or similar struggles or processes, diminishes their individual character development or character arc. If we just had Luthen going crazy, right, it would be impactful because he's supposed to be the leader and he's got this massive burden, right, and you can understand it and you can see it. But then have Bix do it and have other people going through similar strain or mental breakdown or whatever it is, it sort of diminishes it because now you're keeping track of all the crazies and how they're going crazy and why they're going crazy. And part of that is this motivational issue with the characters. So, for example, we're building up to something with Bix and Cassian, right? Bix was not in Rogue One, and so something terrible is going to happen. And the least worst would be that they just split up and they go their separate ways and never see each other again. Off mic, we have sort of gamed out a couple of different scenarios that could happen with Bix and Cassian that result in Cassian becoming even more vengeful and more motivated to hate the Empire. But it's like, how much more hate does Cassian actually have to have for the Empire? They destroyed his home planet. They ultimately, by having one of their cargo ships crash land on his planet, he had friends die. He was separated from his family. And then his adoptive family, his stepfather or adoptive father, whatever you want to call him, was killed by the Empire. Right? This guy's got plenty of reasons to hate the Empire. He's ready. He wants to fight. He wants to be involved in the struggle. But now we're going to keep layering things. Now he's going to be somehow motivated by something that happens to Bix. And it just feels like it's wasting time. We've already laid the groundwork. Season 1 pretty fairly established a lot of the motivations for these characters. And now we kind of want to get into how are they going to act on that? What is the plan? What's the process? Right? We still haven't seen anything about the rebellion coming together yet. We still haven't seen anything about finding K2SO yet. We are 50% of the way through the show, but we've established that everybody now is morose and insane. And so where does this take us? Again, I don't know if this is part of agenda-driven stuff from Kathy Kennedy or if it's just Tony Gilroy saying, I pushed the envelope last time and everybody loved it. Let's see how far we can push it this time and see if people love it or whatever. But if we keep getting more and more of this type of stuff interjected in the show, it's going to look like either a fan film or some other sci-fi franchise, and it will be completely disconnected and divorced from the Star Wars universe. Because really, at this point, the only things that we have that are touchdowns or references would be the TIE Fighter at the beginning, ISB, a couple of stormtroopers here and there, and Saw Gerrera, right? Like, those are the only real things that, and of course Cassian from the same film, but even then he's not in his rebel officer uniform or whatever. So it's like we are adjacent to Star Wars, but we're moving ever farther away from it. We are going to have to return to the Star Wars universe at some point, because we are going to have to deal with the true Rebel Alliance and Mon Mothma leaving and Cassian going to Yavin 4. But it does feel like that there's a drift. It's visual, it's contextual, it has to do with locations. Like for a while at the beginning there, when Bix and Cassian are in the apartment, you have to be told that is Coruscant. In any other Star Wars TV show or movie, when you're on Coruscant, you know you're on Coruscant. Right? The buildings have a certain style, cars flying in the sky, all those types of things. I wasn't sure if they were on another planet hiding out somewhere. It isn't until much later when Luthen is talking to Bix, and he's like, "Oh yeah, Coruscant, it gets on you, it gets under your skin or whatever." And so again, we're pulling away from that visual language of Star Wars, and so it's kind of feeling disassociative at this point. I don't know if that's by accident or by design. The Gorman situation is going to have to be resolved at some point, whether that winds up being the finale / climax of the show, or if we take care of it in the next couple of episodes and then we move on to find K2SO. I don't know how it's all going to be played out, or if the whole thing is going to be resolved over the next 6 episodes. It's important for some reason, but we don't know why. Is it other than the fact that this is the straw camel's back with Mon, where she gives the big speech? What does it really mean for all the other characters, though? We know that something terrible happens, and Mon Mothma declares rebellion and leaves the government. But we've already had a Gorman massacre, because in the show we reference now that Tarkin showed up and crushed everybody, which was a nice deep cut into the Legends lore. And then all the players who are involved, right? Everybody's on site now. Cyril, Cassian's been there and left. We had Vel and Cinta, and all his, and so everybody's kind of there now. The pieces are on the board. It's turned into Ferrix in a way. Everybody's in the town square. What's going to happen? We know what's going to happen, but how does it happen, and what does it mean for the rest of the people? So again, I'm hoping that we are going to continue to weave these things together and come up with a satisfying ending. I know that you were not happy with the way season 1 ended. I hope I don't wind up not being happy with the way season 2 ends, because I feel like we're running out of time here, that we're running out of runway to land this thing. I'm hoping that we see continued improvement, right? We obviously saw improvement between the first 3 episodes and the next 3 episodes. My hope is that they ratchet it up again and we get even more great, awesome stuff. And they continue to tighten the storytelling and the character interactions and all that. But we also need to start making the deaths of characters more meaningful. Brasso, no reason. Cinta, no reason. I mean, there's reasons, but they're not necessarily story reasons. I think that there's statements being made about stuff, gun violence and things of that nature, 2025 politics. But it's not really, those deaths aren't serving the greater good of the story. Again, it's just layering more motivation on top of people who already have enough motivation. And so it feels redundant in a lot of ways to waste a character, Brasso or Cinta, and not really have it do anything. Where'd the TIE Fighter go? I know you mentioned that as well. There's things that are just kind of out there. We did get a sister mention. I believe we called that out as something that we probably wouldn't get resolved but might hear about. So that's interesting. We'll see if it pops up again. But yeah, other than those things, I mean, generally, I like where we're heading with the story. I again enjoyed immensely the Cyril and Dedra arc. We're learning now that she's playing him on some level. I don't know what exactly that means. Again, I hope that's something else that pays off down the line in a meaningful way and not just some cheap thing. I always more ISB, more Coruscant, right? All that stuff with Mon Mothma and the art dealers and the collection, fun, having Krennic in there sparring with her at a cocktail party, excellent. Right? These are all good things, and we need more of them. So, on balance, I'm going to say that I'm more happy with these episodes than the first episodes, and I hope that they continue to show improvement over the next half of the season. With that, we will await Tony's next installment.
Galactic Initiative is not authorized or endorsed by Lucasfilm Limited. The name Star Wars and all related materials are registered trademarks of Lucasfilm Limited, a subsidiary of the Walt Disney Company, by rights reserved. Galactic Initiative is a registered trademark, and other product and company names are trademarks of their respective holders. Use does not imply affiliation or endorsement.